Since nuclear DNA was first used to exonerate an innocent person in an American courtroom in 1989, 341 people have been exonerated. And if you look not just at the DNA cases, but the whole world of cases, that number leaps to almost 1,800. Now keep in mind, these numbers, they represent this tiny fraction of all the criminal convictions out there that have been reanalyzed post-conviction. There's very few attorneys that work at all those innocence organizations that I just mentioned. In ours, we have a total of 2 full-time. Right? And so unless we were to undertake this wholesale reinvestigation of every criminal conviction out there, we have no way of knowing what these numbers actually are. We don't know what our error rate is in our criminal justice system. But what we do know is that the impact and the cost to all of us is tremendous.
Imagine a loved one has just been accused guilty for an innocent crime. The jury does not test for DNA until a lawyer is demanded. The DNA match is negative, and they are now proven innocent. That person just spent time in prison that they did not need. That person knows they were innocent all along, but the jury didn't think they were due to DNA evidence not being used. DNA evidence has helped many people get out of death row and years in prison. Testing for DNA gives facts about what was used in a case rather than assuming the person who was there is guilty. DNA is not always accurate, and sometimes you have the wrong person. All DNA is very alike, but when it comes to testing for it, it helps get facts straight, and DNA does not lie. DNA gives facts to a courtroom so they can decide whether a person is innocent or guilty. Many cases don't look into DNA samples, therefore leaving the victim guilty. DNA testing proves innocent people are innocent when proven guilty. According to the Virginia Supreme Court, DNA tests would prove that the men weren't responsible for the crime. The idea was simple. If DNA technology could prove people guilty of crimes, it could also prove that people who had been wrongfully convicted were innocent. 2 men were sentenced to life in prison, but DNA tests shown that they weren't guilty. The men had already died by the time their sentence could have been over. A timeline in a year gives exact explanation of when a victim was declared exonerated and how many people have been exonerated in a year. Cases of DNA are not looked at deep enough, or DNA just isn't used. According to the justice system about an innocent man, Morin was always an innocent man, but it took 2 trials and nearly 10 years to prove judges and juries in Canada that he was not a brutal child. Sloppy police work also proved that critical evidence usually supportive of a defendant is lost, overlooked, misconcluded, or suppressed. A total of 166 wrongly convicted people in the U.S. are due not to using DNA evidence. Having DNA evidence available to you and not using it is a waste of time. Juries push it off so the victim is convicted guilty without the evidence against them. The other side of the crime might have more obvious evidence against the innocent victim. When cases look into DNA does not always result in innocence. DNA evidence does not always provide innocence. DNA evidence is also not always accurate. The author of an article for Dateline said, "Such testing, civil liberations would say, could be a two-edged sword. On one hand, it could compel some individuals to provide powerful evidence of their own guilt. On the other hand, some innocents who might have been mistakenly charged would be eliminated from consideration. It is said that police latch onto something, perhaps a quirk of behavior that causes them to target an innocent person of the crime suspect. Only then do the police begin to build a case, often minimizing or ignoring evidence that points to the other suspects while exaggerating the importance of other clues. DNA is not often used, and when it is, sometimes can be a ploy for victims who are guilty to be afraid to tell the truth. If a criminal is afraid to tell the truth due to the evidence, they deserve to be proven guilty. The behavior of someone changes the case. Someone with positive DNA in innocent actions likely means they are guilty because acting isn't a fact. DNA is the only foolproof way of providing facts for a case."
In 2001, the Washington State Patrol Crime Lab came on board with the STR-PCR technologies that can analyze really minimal samples. It was really a breakthrough in forensic DNA analysis.
Before we started using PCR, we had to have a stain that was relatively large. PCR allows us to take small amounts of DNA and copy regions of it over and over and over again until we have more copies of that particular area of the DNA that we're interested in.
According to CNN, DNA has come a long way. Now we can test for DNA and copy it so we have a more confident result. Testing victims is an efficient way to conclude any open-ended case. Encourage judges to test for DNA by spreading the word about innocent victims by joining a movement of 500,000 supporters on www.innocentprojects.org/get involved.